So good evening. Good evening. I'm David Leineck. I'm president this year of TCCTA. Thank you for joining us at the general session of the 68th annual TCCTA State Convention. We're excited to be here in Dallas again. I hope everyone has a good time, that you learned a great deal, and that I'll get a chance to talk with you sometime during the next day or two. Here is something I believe. I believe the greater the diversity, the richer the outcome. The greater the diversity, the richer the outcome. The strength of this organization is our diversity and our experience as faculty. Our strength also lies in the students we teach. We'll hear from some of them later. Students who will own our businesses, who will work for and run our government, who will be our first responders and provide us medical care, and in some cases will be our colleagues. Our students at the community college are those who, when we first see them, often don't have experience with the world of higher education, who sometimes don't yet have focused educational goals, who often have many barriers to overcome, and whose skills often need refining. Our convention theme, you see it up here behind me, our convention theme is Lives on the Boundary, honoring our students. And it's an attempt to remind us of why our teaching matters. I want to also remind us of the political work we do and why that's important, because it affects us and the students we serve. But I'll have more to say about the convention theme later in the program. Right now, I'd like to introduce Fred Newberry of Richland College, who will introduce, who's from Richland College and a former TCCTA president, who will introduce his chancellor for us. Fred?
I would add to the welcome. Welcome to Dallas. We're very fortunate tonight. Our chancellor from the Dallas County Community College District, I think, is going to give us an official welcome, which we do appreciate that. Very quickly, I would mention Dr. May. We still refer to him as our new chancellor, and I think it's been a year now. We've got to probably correct that. But just a few things very quickly. He comes to us with considerable community college portfolio. He taught as an adjunct at Cedar Valley College in Dallas. He's been faculty member, dean, college president. He also led statewide community college systems in Colorado and Louisiana. He was founding president of Rebuilding America's Middle Class, a national consortium of community colleges that are dedicated to ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to pursue the American dream. I think he has reestablished in Dallas and allowed us to refocus on the basics of solving problems for our students, employers, and our communities. Dr. May is a Texas native, first member of his family to go to college, and we're delighted that he's back in Dallas and also close to his grandchildren, I understand. So welcome, Dr. Joe May.
Fred, thank you very much, and thank all of you for coming to Dallas. It's great to see you here, and I just want to thank Fred and just acknowledge the outstanding job that the faculty at Dallas County Community College do. We've got such a great group, and let me just say I can recall it was a few years ago, 37 years ago to be exact, that I walked into the doors at Cedar Valley College as an adjunct faculty member. And let me tell you, I didn't have a clue about what I was walking into. I had gone straight through my college work from bachelor's to master's to doctorate, and was about ready to graduate when I had a call saying we're looking for some people to help us out as we're opening the doors at Cedar Valley College, and I came and I worked as a counselor for about 3 months, and then taught adjunct, and it was that adjunct experience when I walked into the classroom. I was the youngest person in the room by 10 years. And as I got to know the students, I realized that for the first time, I were talking to people that really had aspirations for themselves, for their family. I understood why they were there. We shared stories, and inspired me to the point that it changed my whole direction in my career and what I was going to do. And from that moment on, was focused on the important role of community colleges in meeting the needs of individuals. And one thing I love about coming to conferences that are faculty focused, I hear the word student mentioned more times than with any other group. And it's why I do what I do, because about 37 years ago, I got to know a group of students who inspired me, and then I realized I had a role to play, and that was inspiring them. And what I've come to know is that every single day, the faculty, whether it be in Dallas or across the state of Texas or across the United States in our community colleges, inspire students to achieve that would not do so otherwise. And I thank you for what you do at your colleges, and most importantly for our students, who I look forward to hearing from some of them later tonight. And thank you again, and welcome to Dallas.
Dr. May, it was 37 years ago I began as an adjunct at Austin Community College. Those were the days when somebody would walk in the room and not know that we were the teacher. I don't understand what happened. That's no longer a problem. They know exactly who's supposed to be the teacher. I do want to say some thank yous this evening and recognize some very important people. First, the TCCTA campus representatives, who help spread the good word about all the important things the organization does on behalf of educators at two-year colleges across the state, and to help build our membership. If you are a campus representative, will you please stand up? All right. Thank you for all the hard work you do on the behalf of TCCTA. And I especially want to extend thanks to a few of you for going above and beyond, in particular for your efforts in our state contest to promote membership growth in TCCTA. On January 1st of this year, 34 out of 83 colleges across the state had already exceeded last year's end-of-year membership totals. Thank you to the campus representatives at those colleges. The names of these campus reps who increased their membership numbers to exceed the all-time high membership at their college those names are on the screen right now. So we thank you especially for doing a good job. But we have a grand prize winner who managed the highest percentage increase in membership at her institution, and who will be honored with a $500 donation made in her name to the Student Scholarship Fund at her college. And that campus rep is Dr. Jan Modisette of Jacksonville College. Jan, will you please stand up and just wave? Thank you very much, Jan. Thanks to all of you for your continuing support. We'll be sending letters of thanks to the presidents of those colleges, expressing our gratitude for your hard work. I do also want to recognize and thank all of the past presidents of TCCTA If you have served as president of the organization in the past, would you please stand for just a moment? Thank you, guys. Also, if you're currently serving on a committee, would you please stand for just a moment? Good. As I visited the committee meetings this afternoon, I was reminding them that our colleges run on faculty committees. And in the same way, this organization runs on its membership committees. So thank you very much for the time and the energy you take. And those of you who have served as convention section chairs and helped put together the program for this year's convention, would you please stand for just a moment? The convention section chairs. TCCTA and this convention couldn't function as it does without you. We thank you for your commitment to the profession and your service to the organization. I do want to extend a special thanks to the outstanding colleagues with whom I serve on the executive committee. Would the current officers please stand? There you go. I thank you guys all very much. It's been an honor to serve with you in the executive committee for the past several years. I appreciate your leadership and your commitment to the organization. I do want to thank Austin Community College especially, and President Richard Rhodes, who was unable to be here. I think he's at the Achieving the Dream meeting in Baltimore, as are a number of our colleagues. But he and the college have supported me during the several years I've been an officer in TCCTA, and especially this year as president. When colleges support faculty who serve in TCCTA positions, they support all their faculty and faculty across Texas, so I thank you. I do have some colleagues from Austin Community College here. If you guys wouldn't mind standing for just a second. Austin Community College faculty, there we go. It's a pleasure to work with all you guys, and thank you for coming here this evening. Please indulge me a small personal note. I want to introduce and say thank you to two family members who are here this evening. My wife, Susan. Please stand, Susan. Susan taught high school English for many years, and she's been an adjunct at Austin Community College for 25 years. And she's been a member of this organization for each of those years. I wouldn't have run for office without her encouragement, and wouldn't have made it through this year without her support. My sister Carol is also here tonight. Carol, if you'll stand for just a second. Thank you, Carol, for your support and your encouragement. Finally, I want to recognize the people who work in our state office. You see them working in a frenzy out at the registration desk and running around. So I would like to thank Richard Moore. Richard, please stand up. Carol Hawkins. Now, they may not be in the room. They may still be working, but Carol Hawkins. Oh, there's Carol. Scott Nelson. Marcus Molina. He's in the back running the video for us. And Daisy Graves. I don't know if Daisy's in the room or not. Their commitment, their flexibility, their intelligence, and their good humor, maybe especially their good humor, makes TCCTA the strong and effective organization that it is. Beginning in 2002, TCCTA established the Burnside Scholar Award, named for Charles Burnside, the first executive director of the organization. And that scholarship is presented to a deserving student at the college of the current TCCTA president. This was the biggest single joy of my year as president, that I got to choose the student to receive this $1,000 scholarship to help support her education in the coming year. So I'm very pleased to introduce Samantha Petras, this year's Burnside Scholar. If you'll please come up here for a moment, Samantha. Samantha began her college studies at the University of Texas at Brownsville, where she earned 24 credits. She is in her fourth semester at Austin Community College as an earned credit for an additional 24 hours. And she is currently enrolled in 9 more hours. She did happen to earn an A in my Composition 2 class last fall. She's majored in hospitality management, and next year will continue her studies at the University of Texas at San Antonio. Samantha? Now, she will receive her scholarship money in the next couple of semesters, but we do have a plaque for Samantha that says Burnside Scholar Award, presented to Samantha Petras, Austin Community College.
First and foremost, I would like to say thank you to James Cisneros. I really appreciate all your support and everything you do for me to continue my education. Secondly, I would like to thank Jo Albiar. Without her, I wouldn't have had such an amazing first semester and had the courage to continue. And last but not least, Dr. David Leidick, thank you. Thank you so much for talking to me into going back to school and giving me this wonderful opportunity.
Samantha will be one of our student panelists a little later in the program also. I'm very proud of Samantha and her achievements, and I'm glad that this organization continues to support deserving students in such a direct and meaningful way. A quick bit of business that we thought we might do tonight, but let me mention why we won't. There is as required by the bylaws in the convention issue of the messenger, there is a proposed resolution, an amendment to the bylaws. Due to circumstances beyond our control, the resolutions committee was unable to complete its work, and we'll simply do that work at the next convention. The bylaws say it has to be at the convention. So in case you wonder, the absence of that, that's the reason. I would like to introduce now Larry Allen of Panola College. He serves as a member of the nominating committee, also a former president, and he will announce a slate of candidates for state office this year.
Thanks, David. The nominating committee met last November and selected the following individuals who have submitted their names for state office. Would you please stand as I call your name? For the office of President-elect, Wayne Longenhennig. From South Plains College. Wayne, I worked on that last name a long time.
We both did.
Let me try it again. Wayne Longenhennig. Did it better that time. For the office of Vice President, Liz Ann Baez Aguilar, San Antonio College. For the office of Secretary, Mary Ellen Young, Texarkana College. For the office of Treasurer, Ola George, Houston Community College. And also for the office of Treasurer, Bill Simsick, Lone Star College, Tomball. From the nominating committee, our many thanks to these individuals for their willingness to serve. And I'd also like to thank those who served on the nominating committee with me. Their names are now on the screen. I hope everyone will make a point tomorrow to vote. The election booth is located outside this room in the exhibit hall in the far left corner. It only takes a few moments, and it allows everyone to be involved in the leadership of our great organization. Thank you very much.
I do want to thank the candidates for the willingness to step up and offer their leadership to the profession. We do, however, take nominations from the floor. If anyone would like to nominate themselves or someone else, now is the time to do so. I'm not hiding my face, I'm shielding my eyes from the light. Seeing no floor nominations, then I'll declare the nominations closed, and the slate of candidates that is official is the slate that Larry just read to you. A little TCCTA self-promotion. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of the invaluable ways that TCCTA promotes our profession. First is a great teaching roundup, a small gathering, 30 or so usually, of community college teachers that meets in May to celebrate what we do, share ideas, inspire each other, and reconnect with our calling, what led us into this profession in the first place. If you haven't attended the roundup before, you can check out the registration area in the morning for more information, or visit the TCCTA website, or you can ask me, or you can ask Tim Gill, sitting right down here. He and I used to help facilitate the event. It's really an amazing event. Many people say it is the very best professional development I have ever gone to. Then there's the Leading from the Middle Conference, held every July. It's a program for mid-level administrators at Texas two-year colleges. It's a kind of boot camp, if you like, for deans, division chairs, IT directors, student services directors, and others that provides key information and insight to help them succeed in their positions. Many of you have attended the fall conference for faculty leaders. We've been hosting this conference for nearly 30 years, and it's a great chance for faculty leaders, especially those who serve in faculty senates, but any faculty member is invited to attend, to receive briefings that provide a statewide perspective on things affecting our profession. We talk about legal issues, legislative issues, talk about funding our programs. We talk about our retirement, our health insurance. There's nothing we don't talk about in that conference. We visit with each other about what we're seeing on our campuses and how we can support each other. It's a great chance to connect with colleagues around the state, and I hope you'll join us next fall in Austin. And of course, there's the annual convention. You may have heard about that. If this is your first convention, I hope you'll take a few minutes, even if it's not, take a few minutes to look through your program at the more than 150 sessions that will be held over the next day and a half. There is so much to do and so much to take in. If you're like me, you wish you had more time to see it all. And if you've been coming to the convention for years, I might suggest that you'll look through the program and pick out a session you've never attended before. As a member, I often don't go to the English session. I often go to other sessions. Now here's a special note about tomorrow. At 1 o'clock tomorrow, the Professional Development Seminar is being held, and that's titled, A Briefing on Student Success Issues in Texas. The panel will feature the 6 individuals whose names you see on the screen now. It promises to be an informative and lively discussion. Or I would suggest a minute ago, visit a section meeting in a different discipline than your own. Or try the gifts session, very popular, early in the morning, and especially try that if you've never done it before, the gifts session. If you're a book lover, try the book blitz, which will be led by Carol Lowe. Carol, where are you? There's Carol, who teaches English at McLennan Community College and is last year as TCCTA president. If you look, I promise you'll find something valuable you would have missed if you had not come to Dallas this week. Another thing, between the conferences and the get-togethers, I hope you'll make a habit to visit the TCCTA blog, our Network for Teaching Excellence, and the other publications we make available. They're a great way to stay connected and informed with the people and the issues that matter to all of us. If you're active in social media, use the hashtag TCCTA2015, that's TCCTA2015, to tweet and post on Facebook about your experiences during the convention. We have several firsts at this convention this weekend. First, or number one of those, at the registration desk, you'll see projected on the wall, right across from the registration desk, a selection of live status updates and photos from the convention. Go look them over and add one of your own. Another first is the look of the convention program. If you've been coming for a long time to this convention and are used to the narrow, bright blue and white program, it's a shock to see that this year it's entirely, I think it's beautiful, entirely different layout, very nice program. And you'll notice beginning on page 38, I believe, something we've never had before is a list chronologically of the sessions being offered, as well as earlier in the book, session titles. So if you're free at 3 o'clock on Friday, you can see what's going on then. And one more thing, when you signed up for your registration, you got an electronic, whether you've seen it or not, you get an electronic registration receipt. If you keep scrolling down from that, you'll see an electronic evaluation that's available. You might take advantage of that, session and convention evaluation. Now we come to a highlight of the program. Every year, the regional president of Phi Theta Kappa, the two-year college honor society, addresses our annual convention. I always love this. It's always such a thrill to hear from these young leaders and share in their enthusiasm. Please welcome this year's Phi Theta Kappa president, Shauna Gassetta of Tarrant County College. Just trying to get my stuff out of here.
All right, I would like to thank the Texas Community College Teachers Association for allowing me this amazing opportunity. When I was first asked to speak to a room full of educators, I asked myself, whatever could I even say to them that they didn't know already? To make matters even more difficult, I was told that this year's topic was Lives on the Boundaries, Honoring Our Students. This topic became so difficult for me because I come from a modest upbringing in a military-style home that instilled values which related my results directly back to the amount of effort that I chose to put into something. I am a second-time college student, and my first attempts at a college education didn't start so well, and my parents inevitably stopped funding my education. I have approached my second attempt at achieving an education very differently. With the tribulations that each semester brings, I hear my military father telling me, "You're going to get out of this what you put in it." And at the same time, I hear the voice of my daughter, who's a freshman in high school, gleaming as she tells everyone that her mother's an honor student in college. This concept of me honoring you as my instructor, well, it's really a foreign concept. You see, each year Phi Theta Kappa offers its chapters and its members an opportunity to participate in a topic-driven honors and action project. These topics change every 2 years, and within each topic there are several themes that a chapter may choose from. This year we studied Frontiers in the Spirit of Exploration. My chapter studied the topic theme Borders and Boundaries. Tarrant County College's Southeast Campus of Arlington sits in one of the largest melting pots of international citizens. And our chapter wanted to know why these citizens chose our town to live in. We also wanted to know what obstacles they faced upon making these decisions and how they got through it. In order to achieve these answers, we looked to our large international student population. Through this research, I discovered that I could apply this same approach to address you as educators tonight. You see, we are reaching new boundaries in education. Each semester, I become less of a non-traditional student. There are more and more of my peers who share the same domestic and career responsibilities as I do. It is important for you as educators of community college students to recognize that graduating high school and directly heading to college is becoming less and less achievable, and that the norms, they are a-changin'. And let me say this ahead of time. I am not asking that you change your syllabi in such a way that it takes away from learning. Rather, I am asking that you adapt as I did. As a wife, a mother of 2, a full-time employee, and now a full-time student. Adaptation is the only way for success to continue inside your classrooms. An unknown author wrote, "There is no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs." So I'd like to pause for a moment and ask that you reflect and visualize success in your course as a flight of stairs. Do you have too many steps in your course for a student to ever reach the top? One way to adapt would be to move away from using traditionally published textbooks and start utilizing open resources that are available to you and your students. In the past year and a half, I personally have spent out of my pocket $1,200 for required course materials that have expired because they were purchased through an access code. These access codes only allow a specific period of time to access course information. And there have been many times that I have juggled between purchasing the access code or not. And I have even contemplated taking a lesser of a semester grade because opting out of such a purchase would not allow me to complete my homework assignments. And sadly, in my experience and the experience of my peers, many of our instructors are not even utilizing half of what those softwares have to offer. I do value you, and I do value your time. I realize that homework assigned through such online access cuts down on grading, assessment testing, tutoring, and even possibly cheating. But at what cost should those time savers be shuffled to the student? The class of classroom materials should not be the dividing line between a successful student and a non-successful student. Use of open source materials stimulates creativity, engagement, and it sometimes even stimulates wakefulness because your students will have the extra money to buy a cup of joe. Financial constraints from course materials, they're not the only challenges that modern students face. That's what I'm calling myself, a modern student. My children are well beyond the years of needing childcare, but many of my peers have returned to school with little ones. Childcare costs a great deal of money, consumes much of their time in finding it, and it trespasses on trust as they surrender their little ones over to the hands of strangers. If they have to go through all of this to go to school, they expect a high rate of return on that investment. There is nothing more frustrating to arrange for childcare only to have an inferior education and classroom experience. Honor these students' circumstances, but do not allow excuses. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "The secret in education is respecting the student." New Age teaching recommends for instructors to flip their classrooms and encourage students to prepare for the lesson ahead of class. This causes the class to be a dynamic environment in which students elaborate on what they already studied. Doing so allows the student to go beyond their normal boundaries and to explore their natural curiosity. And because this aspect is completed at home, it resolves some of the challenges as they try to get to campus. I believe that curiosity is the main driver of learning. As a basic principle of learning, it makes little sense to force students to memorize reams of text that they will either begrudgingly recall or instantly forget. Benjamin Franklin said, "Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember, but involve me and I learn." I understand that this places a considerable burden upon the student. You are entrusting them with important aspects of their education, but trust is empowering. So take a risk and adapt your classes into an atmosphere of activity-based learning as opposed to lecture only, and you will be amazed with the results. The great philosopher Phil Collins, lead singer of Genesis, stated that in learning you will teach, and in teaching you will learn. One of my favorite teachers agreed, saying, "I didn't really understand my subject until I started teaching it." So as society changes, so should the instructional materials and methods. And surely you know better than I do that it is important for you to stay up to date in the basic concepts of what is sought after in a given trade or in the four-year university. Earlier, I indicated that curiosity is the main driver of learning, but today, employment has become the driver of society now seeking education. It seems more and more when I turn on the television, there are changes being made not only to primary and secondary education, but now to higher education as well. Classes that were once deemed important are being removed from the core, and there are even talks of community colleges being transformed into workforce education centers. You are, well, we are, because surely your students are there with you, caught in a whirlwind of change. Legislators, who are frequently not educators, interpose themselves in this process. State budget boards and college chancellors focus on economics, not on course content or pedagogy. In this climate of change, the one constant that I have come to rely on is you. Because you love your disciplines and because you care about us, we need you. Or perhaps this is a symbiotic relationship. We need each other. Help us continue to rely on your passion and fed by that passion on your continued growth as educators. I would like to thank you for not only allowing me this amazing opportunity, but to thank you for taking the time to positively impact someone's future. I will end with one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Seuss. "You will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory. So instructors, you are valued and you do make a difference. Thank you for being a part of my memory."
It is, in fact, a symbiotic relationship, Shauna. A cup of joe, do students use that expression? A cup of joe, really? I thought that was my generation. We do thank you for your remarks, and you remind us of why we teach, because you remind us of who we teach. The anthropologists tell us sometimes to make it strange. What they mean is to look at something that is common to us as if we've never seen it before. It pays for us to remember, I think, what going to college was like the first time, especially if you had no idea what it was. Maybe you never had a family member introduce you to it, to explain it to you. I am curious, who in this room was the first in their family to go to college? I was. I'm curious. Here's another question. How many of us have as our first degree an associate's degree? That's cool. Thank you. I was just curious. But think about what we faced and think about what our students so often face when they walk into our campuses. I admire my students and I'm amazed at what they have to overcome sometimes. The work they take on, the goals they aspire to. I sometimes tell my students, you guys just expect too much of yourselves sometimes. I'm impressed by their courage. Last semester at ACC, at Austin Community College, Dr. Merrill Patterson, our Assistant Dean of Faculty Development, had a really great idea, simple but great idea. She took poster board to the student lounges, and she had students just come by and write in response to 2 different prompts. One was, my best professors have helped me by, and the other prompt was, something I'd like my professors to know about me is. They wrote their responses on poster board. They remained anonymous. You see some of their responses now on the screen. A few minutes ago, I was passing around to the tables these little bookmarks. We took a number of these responses. I didn't sort them, so your whole table may have the same thing. I don't know. But we took these responses, selected them, and made them into bookmarks as a remembrance, as a reminder for us what our students say they want from us and what they want us to know about them. And there'll be a lot more of these at the registration desk if you want to have some more and see a greater variety of them. What I find remarkable about these student responses is that they don't whine, they don't lament, they don't complain, at least not very much. And I think this is to their credit. Here they are, new to a strange environment, and they're giving us insight as to how we can help them. And often they were admonishing us, I think Shauna just said this, not to go easy on them. I think we should listen to them. We should pay attention to that. Our main program tonight is a panel that consists of 3 students who are successfully navigating college. You've heard from 2 of them. The idea is that they will help us understand how they do it. We chose the students, and then we asked each of them, what teacher would you most like to have up here on the stage with you? They responded. They told us the teachers we invited, and the teachers are here. They'll, that is the teachers, will help us understand their part in helping their students succeed. Our keynote speaker this evening will say a few words, then we'll monitor our panel to help us learn from the students and their teachers. It is my honor to introduce Tricia Berry. She is the director of the Women in Engineering program at the University of Texas at Austin. She concurrently serves as lead for the Texas Girls Collaborative Project, leading the dissemination of STEM best practices and informal curriculum across Texas in coordination with the National Girls Collaborative Project. Ms. Berry is also co-founder and executive vice president for 825 Basics and the co-author of You Can't Eat Your Degree. Now she tells me. More recently, she's been working with the general issues of student success, persistence, and retention. So please welcome Tricia Berry.
And no, I don't look like that picture anymore. I got to figure out where that came from because that's from about 15 years ago, I think. It's from a while ago. Well, I am thrilled to be here this evening. Student success is definitely an area that I live and breathe every day and a passion of mine for sure. It's definitely critical to the work that I do within the women in engineering space, trying to build that community and support our students in the student division, student affairs arena. And we know that when we can't make that connection with students, when we don't see them at our programs, when they don't show up in our student organizations or in our classes, and they don't show up in anybody else's programs, we have the potential to lose them. And we don't want that to happen, especially, of course, in the women in engineering space. We don't have a crazy number of them anyway. We don't want to lose anybody. So making those connections are critical. We're going to talk a lot about that tonight. So one of the researchers that we look to sometimes around student engagement is Alexander Aston, and he has these 5 indicators that translate to success. And they kind of tie into what we're going to talk about tonight with the panelists. So the 5 indicators are time and energy devoted to studying. So that's an indicator of how well a student is going to do and how well they're going to persist. Time spent on campus, which we know is definitely a challenge given today's students and their demands. Participation in student organizations. Interaction with faculty, which we're going to talk a lot about tonight. And then interactions with other students. So those are the 5 things that he indicates impact students' excellence in education. So again, we're going to focus on that interaction with faculty piece tonight, and I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about some of those traditional methods that we have, faculty-student interactions, like in the class, of course, or office hours, or through those student organizations. But I'm guessing that we're probably going to get into some non-traditional ways as well. And I thought I would start by just sharing one of the non-traditional things that we're doing within our program and on our campus. We were part of a National Science Foundation grant that's aim was to infuse 3 research-based strategies, retention-based strategies, into our schools. And there were about 10 schools, 10 universities that partnered on this program. They weren't meant to influence the actual curriculum because that's nearly impossible to do. So these were initiatives that we could kind of plug in a different way within the school setting. Our faculty team got together with some administrators and started to brainstorm around how are we going to take the faculty-student interaction piece of these research strategies. That was one of the 3. What are we going to do on our campus that's going to impact faculty-student interactions in a meaningful way? And the faculty that were on our team, they said, well, you know what? Maybe we just need our faculty to start sharing things beyond what they're teaching in the classroom. And they like cookies, right? How many of y'all like cookies? They said, we like cookies just as much as students like cookies. And maybe that'll bribe some faculty. We're not above bribery. What if we took cookies to their classrooms? If the faculty would commit to having a conversation with their students for 20 minutes in their regularly scheduled classroom period. Put away the textbooks, or hopefully not the textbooks, put away whatever they're trying to lecture on during that day, and talk to their students about who they are, what they're doing, how they got to where they are, their research, a variety of things that aren't necessarily what they typically share in the classroom. Share their hobbies, share their lives outside of the university. And interestingly enough, it started to change the culture. Just having these conversations has made an incredible difference on those interactions with our students in those classrooms. We have been doing this for first and second year engineering classes now for about 5 years. We call them the Cookies Connections classes because that's more fun. The dean just wants it called Connections classes. I think she doesn't want us throwing cookies all over the place. But our cookies classes, I'll say that here, are so popular now that we even have faculty coming back every semester and saying, are you doing it again? Are you going to give us cookies? Again, the faculty want the cookies, I think, as well. They're even now starting to be bold and put in requests. I've had specific requests for types of cookies this year. Never had that before. This semester alone, we will, before spring break, have delivered about 3,000 cookies to 27 classrooms, reaching nearly 1,500 students in our first and second year engineering classes in every single department that we have within the Cockrell School. And we did about the same number in the fall. So my office gets a little tired of cookies, I would say. But the responses from the students are what keeps us going and keeps us providing the cookies in the class. So I thought I'd share 3 of them with you, and then we'll bring the panelists up. So this was a response from, these were 3 responses from different students in the fall. The first, I thought my professor was more personable after the connections class. I now feel more comfortable approaching him if I need help with the class, or more generally, if I need help while at the Cockrell School. The second one, they felt more like a real person rather than just an intimidating scholarly person guy. That one makes me laugh every time. And then the last one is perhaps my ultimate favorite from the fall. The connections class session allowed the entire class to see that even though there are a plethora of rumors about how evil and threatening the electrical engineering department and its professors are, at the end of the day, they're just as human as we are. It allowed us to connect on a more personal note with our professor, and it eased any strained tensions we may have felt in the room with someone who is brilliant enough to be accredited for her teachings at UT. So I crack up every time, but it's comments like this, they're just reams of comments that are just like this about how the students walk out after 20 minutes with cookies, 20 minutes of having a conversation, they walk out with a completely different perspective of who that is up in the front of the room and that they're a real person, they can approach them, they can feel comfortable connecting with them. That's huge when we're doing this work that we do. So, we're going to hear more stories about that, I'm sure, this evening. I'm going to have our panelists make their way up here to the stage. And as you heard, we've got 3 students and 3 teachers that they have invited to join them. I'm assuming these are on, and I'm assuming this is my seat. And we have microphones to share that are perhaps on as well. Maybe? No? Or do we have magical people making that happen? All right. So let me introduce our panelists. You met a couple of them earlier. I feel like my back is to you all over here. I'm going to scooch like this a little bit. I don't like having my back to too many people over there. Okay, now hopefully you can see. So let's start at the far left, your far right. We have Joel Mason. Joel is a student at Collin College. He's the Texas Junior College Student Government Association president. And next to him is the teacher that he invited, Mike McConaughey, brother to Matthew McConaughey. Even though his name is spelled differently, it's the better way to spell it. He is a professor of government at Collin College. Next to him, we have Shauna, who you heard from already. Shauna Gassetta is the Phi Theta Kappa Regional President and a student at Tarrant County College. And next to her is Vicki Sapp, Professor of English at Tarrant County College. And then next to Vicki, we have Samantha Perez, who you met earlier. She's the 2014-2015 Burnside Scholar. And then next to her is Joe Albiar, Adjunct Professor of English at Austin Community College. So again, welcome panelists. We're glad to have you here. So I'm going to ask them a variety of questions. Some of the questions are directed a little more at the students, and some are directed a little more at the faculty. And we don't necessarily have an order or a plan, and as I always like to say in my classrooms, we don't have to be linear. Okay, even though good engineers, they like linear and order and all that, I like to mix it up a little bit. But we're going to start with the students. All right, so students, what's one characteristic that you have or an action that you have taken that's helped you become such a successful college student? They're going to make it linear.
First. No, I think I've been really blessed to know a lot of the faculty of my college, and that's as a result of me being kind of pushed into going into student organization work. I think I've met just about every important person there is at the college, as well as some really fantastic professors, just as a result of me being involved in student government. So that's something that has really changed my course of how I've been at this college.
I'm going to echo that. Being a representative of Phi Theta Kappa, I am a campus ambassador, and so I've had the opportunity that most students wouldn't get to have with college presidents and chancellors and such. And I also work at Tarrant County College, so my instructors are also my colleagues, so it makes it extremely easy.
I would say time management for me has been a really big part of succeeding or trying to succeed. You know, you tend to prioritize, and whatever doesn't make it at the top of your list, it probably wasn't that important to begin with. But, you know, for the most part, you just try to get everything you can accomplish, and just try to move forward.
Right, great. Well, thank you. And I think y'all kind of hit on some of those things I mentioned earlier about those 5 indicators of success. So let me ask the students another question. Why did you invite the teacher who is next to you to join you?
I guess I'll go first again.
It's hard to not be linear.
Well, I mean, even though he has the same name, I think Dr. McConaughey is much cooler than Matthew McConaughey. So, Dr. McConaughey has been working with me in student government for some time now, and I think I've grown to be really, really comfortable talking to him and just going to him for advice on things, much more so than I think if I had just been a student in his class. But I think I've had a really great relationship with him through that, and I'm very thankful for that.
I brought Dr. Sapp with me because in my speech I talked about that outside of the box kind of teaching, and I took early Brit Lit with her a couple of semesters ago, and when I was in high school I was in all advanced classes as well, and much of what we read in Brit Lit I had already seen before, and her approach to reading some of those Canterbury Tales and all those things that you just don't really want to have to read again. She made it fun and exciting, and she doesn't admit it, but it's probably the most I've ever gotten out of any kind of literature class, and I don't want to admit that either because I don't like literature. But
I chose Professor Albiar because she made my very first semester at ACC an incredible, easygoing, and challenging one. She I was very nervous going back to school and starting all over, and she just made the transition so much easier that just made me want to continue and succeed.
Okay. So now we're going to turn it to these teachers, because obviously they've had some great impact on these students here, and I'm sure countless other students that are in their classes. So teachers, let's hear from you. What do you do to engage with your students or to improve those interactions both inside and outside of the classroom?
You want me to start? Okay, we'll do the backwards linear stuff. Well, you actually kind of stole my answer. One of the things I'm a big believer in is knowing that I have 28 people out there, not 28 pawns in a curriculum warfare. And I like them to know that I'm not this scholarly lecturer up there. I had a student last semester who told me, it's really hard to look you in the eyes because it's like I'm falling into hell whenever I look into your eyes. And he said it jokingly and I laughed. And so one of the simplest things for me is just to smile whenever I'm up there. But I also try to have conversations with my students. For me, it's the 5 to 10 minutes before class starts. And all of my students know that I hate cats. And I know that Sam has a cat. Andrew's a veteran. Celeste has a daughter who's, has the flu right now. Just little things that I'll eavesdrop on and talk to them about before class even starts. I play my Pandora station before class starts, and they're like, you really don't look like someone who would listen to Metallica. But it's something that they that they see me as a person doing, so it makes things a lot easier. When Shakespeare adds some comic relief into his tragedies, that's kind of what I try to do in my class. Not that I'm funny or anything, but.
Well, the first thing is my very strong belief in the value of my subject. As I tell my math colleagues, I haven't done a math problem since I was 17. But I do English every hour of every day. I tell my students, I love you math people too. And I'm the grammar goddess. We study grammar and they love it. We have a great time. But I'll give you an answer that I think is the most core truth about this question. Years ago, I was asked to fill out a questionnaire a couple of years ago in which I had to write about my place of peace and contentment, happiness. And I wrote the classroom. I wrote a little bit about the classroom, and I got the answer, no, you misunderstood the question. We want your place of utter happiness and peace and contentment. And I said, you need to get your ears checked. I said the classroom. I am never happier than when I'm in the classroom, and they know it. And so it's a place of happiness and peace. And as was mentioned earlier, we have all nations, all generations, all lifestyles, all backgrounds. But when we're in there, we're happy and we're peaceful. And it just happens that way. And I think those of you who have been parents, you know that what comes from the parent to the child will feel. And I think the classroom is the same way. So I'm so happy to be there with them. They must know that, and it relaxes them and makes them happy to be there too.
I've always felt, I second that on the classroom. I've always felt there are two things that a good professor, teacher needs. One is expertise in their field, and they learn very quickly. I love nothing better than talking American and Texas politics. I tell them for 50 or 75 minutes, they have to pretend to humor me that that's the most important thing in the world. Second, I believe the classroom can be a fun place. And I tell them, if I'm not having fun, you're not going to have fun. So I do crazy things. I don't play Metallica. I play 70s country music. I love Star Wars and Star Trek, so they've quickly learned that Jedi Council is often a foil on the test. But I think two things. One, I have always had an open door policy regarding office hours and beyond. I put whatever the required office, I think it's 6 for us. So I put them on the syllabus. Once I put 8 on the syllabus, the dean said, no, just put 6. So I put 6, and then I say, I'm usually there more than those hours, except Friday afternoons, of course. And you are more than welcome to drop by and see if I'm there. And if the door is open and I'm not on the phone and I'm not with somebody, I will talk with you. We can talk about politics. We can talk about the course. We can talk about your major. I think of the old saying that people don't care what you know till they know how much you care. And then getting to know Joel through work with student organizations or just walking through the hall. My current dean, who was my first dean, is big on campus visibility. And I'll remember the first year I was a full-time professor, we had a large group of full-time professors that year, and I was not on his campus. And he sent out an email to the rookies, so to speak, that some of them were not visible. And I'll remember he put a PS at the bottom of mine and said, Mike, I'm not worried about your visibility. That was one of the things that made me feel really good. So I just try to be accessible. I send out a weekly email each week, both to face-to-face and web classes, saying this is what we did, this is what's coming up, and occasionally I'll include something like a Super Bowl prediction or a weather prediction. And the web students seem to really appreciate that. That seems to create a connection for them.
That's great. So I heard fun come up in each of those, I believe, as well as that connecting with the students both about your own personal passions and your personal interests, which makes a big difference. So students, I want to hear from you again. What is an example of how faculty have helped you become a successful student? You may have shared a little bit when you were talking about why you invited the person next to you to join you. But can you share with us maybe another example or a couple of examples of faculty and their assistance with your college career in some way?
So when I headed back to the classroom, I was 33 years old, and when I graduated high school, I was 4th in my class. So academically, I never struggled, but there were so many years in between having to study and such that I ended up having to take a placement test, and I was really, it was a humbling experience because I've never failed a test in my life, and I did. I failed the math, and that was not ever a complication for me. And so my math instructors really, it actually kept me out. Taking that placement test and failing kept me out of school for an additional 2 years. And finally, when I got the gumption to go back to school, the math instructors, they introduced me to the resource lab, and I realized that there was a world of help out there for me and that I didn't have to struggle and I wouldn't be alone. And so it's just giving that extra step to let us know that there's just more than them.
One of the things that I really like about ACC is the diversity of students that attend. There's all different ages, backgrounds, foreign exchange students, you name it. And one of the things that I've noticed about ACC faculty is that they're very, very determined to help everybody out. just giving everybody the opportunity to succeed and just do as much as they can to see that student move forward. It's one of the things that Joe Alvear started, or when I first noticed it, and it's just continued semester after semester. And we really appreciate it.
I don't have any specific examples, but I will say that my college has been very, very good about doing leadership training and really pushing students to get outside of their comfort zone, whether it's doing a particular event with the college or just one-on-one with the professors in the classrooms. I've had several professors, mainly government professors, as I typically relate to them because that's my favorite subject. So, so I think before I did anything with student government, I was just kind of a loner, kind of just went to college and then left, did the work, and it was only because I had a few professors and some friends who really encouraged me and talked to me and told me that I could be a lot more than I am, and if I were just to take a few steps. So I think I'm really blessed and lucky to have a really great college of faculty members who really go out of their way to really speak to their students and get to know them on a personal level.
Great. So we're going to go back to the teachers. So learning from failure, we talk a lot about within the STEM space, the growth mindset, having this belief that you can learn and you can grow and that your intelligence isn't not just, I tell my students, you're not just born knowing how to do differential equations. That does not happen. You have to figure it out and you have to study and you have to fail along the way oftentimes. So we're going to learn from some failures now because learning from failures is a good thing. So what faculty-student interaction failure have you seen or have you experienced, and what did you learn or what did you do differently because of that?
Oh.
Don't want to go linear when it's a failure question.
Well, conflict and anger have no place between an instructor and a student. I have said that when I'm inside the building, there is not a problem that I can't solve. At least, let me soften that a little. I have the knowledge and the resources and the experience to bring a constructive solution to the problem. But you cannot ever lose your cool. You cannot argue. You cannot have a scene in class. You have to find a way to smooth that over and calm everybody down. And I myself have never had a fight or a scene in class. I have heard of these, and I always think it's very unfortunate. But when I go into the outside world, it's different. But that's because, inside our building, we have another purpose. I heard a great analogy one time. When you have a baby, a newborn baby, and it cries and fusses and is colicky, you don't get angry and upset and go on a campaign against the baby. It's a call to action. The distress of an infant is a call to action. And that's how I see every bit of distress from my students. It's a call to action. And it is my job to answer that call and make things right.
I think one of the things that helps with failure, I can think if I had what I would call a low-level conflict scene between two students in an evening class and one stormed out that I had to write up and send to the dean, and then he didn't reappear, which was a good thing. But the class was very forgiving and supportive of me. I have made other mistakes, from as minor as mischecking the box in Blackboard when a test closes to miscalculating grades. And when I do, I try to own them and tell them that I may pretend to be perfect, but I'm not. I find students to be very forgiving and very sympathetic and wanting the best for their instructors or the professors if you will, I'm not sure this is exactly the right term, level with them appropriately.
Yes.
And I think students will go a long way with you. That doesn't mean you can't sometimes get in their face. I had an email this week from somebody complaining about an old laptop in a web class, and I said, part of you, it's not the college's responsibility or mine. It's your responsibility to have a dependable laptop. There are alternatives. There are computers at the public library or at the school, but don't whine about your laptop.
I'm going to speak from my experience as a student first. Something I remember when I was in grad school, for creative writing, I had a mentor, my faculty mentor, who kept sending me back the same comments about all of my writing. And I wasn't getting it, obviously, but all she was basically doing was kind of copying her letter and sending it over and over again throughout the course of a year until things came to an impasse between us. And all I could think was, or remember back to, was when I was a high school teacher. And one of the biggest things we had to learn was modification. You have to understand where your students are coming from, how some of them learn differently. And she just wasn't getting it. She wasn't getting that I wasn't getting it, and she just kept sending me the same commentary. And so that's one of the things I try to maintain as a teacher now on this side, that I learn by example, so I mostly teach by example, but sometimes students aren't going to get that. And just today I actually had someone who was kind of confused about the difference between metonymy and synecdoche, and I was just kind of repeating the same lesson to her, and I could see in her face that she was a little frustrated with the way I was telling her. So going back with the kind of leveling with them, being honest with them, I just had to stop and say, you know what, right now off the top of my head, I can't think of a new way to tell you, but let me get back to you here in a few minutes. And if I can't think of something, does anyone else have a way that maybe they're processing it right now? And even if at that point neither of us can come up with something, let me get back to you next class period. Let me go home and do some more research, find a new way to kind of present it to you, and I will get back to you. And I just could kind of see some relief in her face, like, you understand that I'm not getting it the way you're saying it, but thank you for being honest, and thank you for being willing to come back and teach me the way I need you to. So I think that honesty is just one of the nicest, or one of the best ways to kind of cement that interaction between faculty and students, and especially to kind of, make those failures turn into some still teachable moments.
Great. Well, I'm going to flip this over to the students, and this was not a question that you have seen before, but it's great. It's easy. I want you to think about a similar experience as well. Have you had a failure moment, so to speak, or seen a failure moment perhaps with a student-faculty interaction? Have you experienced that in your class or in office hours or with your organizations? And what did you learn from it? Either something that you had happen to yourself or something that you saw with someone else? You might need a second to think on that one.
I think one of my comp classes, there was a foreign exchange student who, her English wasn't amazing, and I could see that she was very frustrated. And I had to grade, it was actually in Ms. Elliott's class, and we had to, help each other out with our papers and whatnot. And instead of just crossing everything out and being like, no, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, I actually went back and I was like, look, it seems like there are a couple of rules that you're actually not getting, and perhaps we should just go back and revisit those before you turn this in. And so that was one of those things where I could tell she was very frustrated, and she thought she was going to fail, and she thought she wasn't, she had to retake the class. But it's just, you just have to, like they've been saying, level with the students and just explain as much as you can and find an alternative so they feel comfortable enough to go back to you.
I guess my greatest failure is assuming that the other students are there for the same reason and want to get something out of class. I have stood up in classes and asked people to be quiet and allow our instructors to continue, and that typically doesn't make me very popular, and so I guess that's probably the greatest failure, but I keep doing it, so I don't know.
I would say probably an area where I may have not succeeded in the way I wanted to is just not connecting with the other students and the other professors in my class to a point that I would isolate myself and I would just be kind of cut off and I would do my own thing and then leave. And I would think that overall that's really hurt my academic standing. I probably would, I would just love to take back some of the times when I've not gone out and not tried to connect and not try to talk to my professors or my fellow students. I think I don't really, it's kind of a difficult situation sometimes when you've got the one student in the class in the back that won't talk to anybody. But if there's some way professors can find a way to interact with all of the students in the class on a personal level, more than just a meet and greet, I think that would really have a really great impact on a lot of people.
So I'm going to throw another question in before I ask my last question. We open it up for questions to the audience, so be thinking about your questions. So you've all talked about, in some sense, those students that aren't there for the same reasons, that maybe aren't getting it in some way but don't feel comfortable going and asking the question, or not going and engaging yourself maybe the way that you want to. And I was kind of that student when I look back. I didn't realize it when I was a sophomore, so you've got plenty of time to still interact with your faculty. But I think back, and I didn't go to office hours. I didn't go and ask questions and interact in the way that I should have, in the way that I tell my students to do today. How do you reach those students that maybe don't feel comfortable, even despite the Pandora playing and the happy joy that you bring into the classroom that they can obviously see? What are some things that you have either seen in your classes or things that maybe you all do that reaches those kids in the back, or those ones that never make it into your office hours? Any of y'all? Students or teachers, you can both jump in.
Sometimes I'll go to them personally. Sometimes I'll email. I struck up a conversation with a young lady last fall that was taking notes on an iPad mini, and that she felt included in the class because she wrote for a letter of recommendation early just this month. But sometimes you can't always reach them, and sometimes they're silent learners, and they want to come and absorb it and take it and process it in their own way. They're always the ones that I call the surprises. By the time we have the first test, I usually can guess they're going to make an A, they're not going to make a passing grade, and there's always a surprise at each end. And the silent A's are the ones I call the killer A's, because and then once they distinguish themselves on the written part, then they start getting called on in class gently to be brought in, and I'll tell them, I say, you've got something to share besides just with me. I want it shared with the class. But you can't beat yourself up because you can't reach all of them. That's my 2 cents.
I have a real sneaky assignment I do the first week in class. It's called Teach the Teacher, and it's a writing sample, and I tell them, I get to pretty much tell you what to do the whole semester, so I think it's only fair that this first week you tell me what to do. Each of you tell me something that if I knew it about you, I could teach you better, or something that you know about that you would like for me to know about. And they really respond well to that. Some of them will write, 500, 750 words. I tell them try to hit 250, just so I can get a good sample. And I learn about each and every one of them, and I make notes about it. So if I see a student that's kind of lagging behind or unresponsive, I can again sneak in a reference to something that they told me and show them that I do know them, and that we can talk. And I try to find a point of interest. I use Blackboard Turnitin for the grade marks, so I can put those little blue bubbles up and type them notes. I'm the fastest typist in the world. So one of them might say something on a paper, or even a sentence skill exercise, and it will spark something in me, a joke, an anecdote, a shared experience, and I'll put it up there in one of those little bubbles, And it's very personal. Perhaps one of them has just lost somebody in their family, and I'll tell them about when that happened to me. Or they like cats, and I love cats, you know. And so I do send a lot of emails to their annoyance occasionally. But if a student is floundering or there's a problem, I'll shoot a little email out, and they're never, okay, where's your work? It's like, what's up? You know, what's up? Or I'll send them a song or a reference to a movie. I said, well, you know, you said that you were upset about so-and-so. Check out this film. It handles that situation. And it's the human connection. You know, I see each of my classes as this is a good old 70s word, a sort of a holistic shared experience for the term. And it's okay for us to cross the personal boundary and engage a little bit with each other's life if that's what is called for. That can be a fine line, you know, but it works so far very well.
Along with that, I mark up papers by hand, and one of the things I like to do is find the sort of the underdog. I know who's going to write the A papers. I know the A papers that are always going to come in, but I like to find the underdog who's been working really hard on this paper and has learned from the past paper or whatever, and I like to ask them, hey, can I share your paper or your paragraph with the class? And that has always worked wonders for those students, the quiet ones in the back, the ones who never engage, who never participate, and they're suddenly like, oh, you see me, you saw me, and you noticed. And they're so happy just to be recognized, and then they're so proud to have that shared with everyone. You know, it's not just the A students who are having their papers put on the refrigerator. It's me too, you know, and I think that's one of the biggest things for me that works really well.
Students, anything to add?
Phi Theta Kappa has 4 hallmarks, and one of them is service. And so because I am a second-time around student, and I did have a little bit of struggles in the beginning, I think it's really important to reach out to those students. And so I tutor students, and at TCC, they're really big on like group work, or at least all my instructors have been so far. And I try to find those students and actually partner up with them. It's not always the smartest, because sometimes I end up doing most of the talking or presenting or something, but I try to include them in everything and kind of build on their confidence, because that's really all they lack. And so I just mentor and tutor those type of students.
Anything else?
I mean, I would just say everything that has been mentioned, it sounds amazing, and I love that teachers actually do take the time to think about those students, because I was one of those students at some point, and without them and without their support and without everything they do for us, I wouldn't be where I am today. So thank you to everyone.
And on a related note, just talking about the way a faculty relationship with a student can really impact a student's life. I know of a student named Mariah who started off her first year of college paying her way, working full-time, and really was kind of in the background for a long time until a few really, really great, awesome professors got involved in her life and really made an impact. I mean, they were giving her gasoline money at one point, offering her scholarship opportunities, even job opportunities, to the point that had she not had that help and that attention from professors getting involved in her life personally, she would not have stayed at the college. And I'm really glad she did, because I ended up marrying her. So that just goes to show. She's right over there. No, that just goes to show professors' involvement in students' lives really does have an impact. And she would not be here today, and I probably wouldn't be either, had it not been for a few professors really looking into her life and finding out what was wrong and taking the initiative to help her out. So we can really, really be grateful for those professors for that.
Great. Well, I've got one more question, and then we're going to open it up. So this one's back at our teachers here. How can you reinforce these characteristics of successful students? How can you in the classroom, and I think you've mentioned a variety of things already, but how can you reinforce this with students inside and outside the classroom?
Back to food. SAP's Coffee Bar and Student Lounge. I have a Keurig coffee maker in my office and a big Costco box of pods. Have a drawer full of chocolate on the right side. On the left side, I have tuna in bags. When students feel, when they come to see me, in whatever mood they're in, I have food for it. And, you know, in our culture, as in many, if not most cultures, food is love. And 90% of them refuse it. But almost everybody mentions it eventually, that, oh, you offered me coffee. Why did you do that? Because I wanted some, you know, and I wanted to share it with you. I also do a lot with my students out in the community. I have taken them to CATWT, the Creative Writing Association, taken panels. I have 2 of our students are published authors in an anthology that I published last year. I will not give you the title for reasons that you can find out if you write to me. It's an actual anthology of creative writing. The title is Trash Told Tales. That's the first part of it. And there's a group that meets every year. It's a conference called the Cutting Edge Youth Summit. It's in Dallas this spring. And I take a panel of my world literature students to that. And we put on a panel called World Literature and Global Understanding. I encourage them to publish. I frequently publish anthologies of my students' work in any course that we're doing. I try to show them that any of them, like the 2 that are now nationally, internationally published authors, that all of you've got the goods. You just have to find the venue for them. And again, that's part of our job, to see who has what that might fit where, and to take them there or get them to write it or tell it or, you know, get it out there. So.
Gee, I just have a bowl of peppermints and butterscotches. I feel really bad now. I don't have space for all that.
I didn't tell you about the bar.
Oh, darn. What is your office? I think following up, seeing them after the semester they've had you can be significant. You may not always, if we run through 35 a class, so you may not always remember their names, but you remember, oh yeah, and I remember by seats. I can often tell you where the student sat in the class before I can pull their name up. And that sometimes then gives you the opportunity to tell your current classes, well, never by name, of course, but I had a student that went on to UTD, SMU, or passing on the success. But when you see them after you've had them, that reinforces that tie, I think.
I eavesdrop a lot, so. Especially on paper days when they're due, and I hear everyone asking, well, what story did you read, or when did you write your paper? And inevitably the answer is this morning. But every once in a while there are those students who are, really proud of the work they did, and, oh, this is what I did. I read all the stories, and this is why I picked this one. And so when I overhear that, I try to connect them to each other, just in case they still feel like it's hell looking into my eyes. Then I say, well, go talk to your new best friend in class. On the first day of class, I have them make BFFIC, best friends forever in class. And go talk to your new best friend and see what they did. I think they've got some good stuff going on. Maybe try it out, what they did next. So I like to get them connected to each other as well.
So lots of great nuggets and suggestions and ideas. What questions do you all have in the audience? And I don't know that we have any microphones in the audience, but you can talk loudly. Questions? Yes.
We have totally avoided the fact that Texas grades 1 through 12 has the we're 50 out of 50 in graduation rate. We have many students, that come from very difficult backgrounds and everything like that. And we've had no mention of the fact that a lot of this is due to the interaction with our government, all the way from the city to the state. And there's been no mention of anything like that. Do you ever find a way to talk about the fact that, a big factor in college has to do with the little place we call the village?
So the question, if I can paraphrase a little bit, was around that we are not necessarily graduating the numbers out of high school that we want to, and that
The question was, are you making students aware, in addition to the subject matter, that there is an interaction with their government that greatly affects, students all through the state?
I do have an answer, a sort of. I converted my Comp 2 class this term into a class called American Dystopia. And I had the students themselves, after we read some things and saw some documentaries, come up with a list of dystopian markers. And then we're going to spend the rest of the term looking for these in different aspects of our society. And one of the places that we're certainly going to look is education and government. As a corollary, I'm very concerned about technology, about the sort of what I call the ecstasy of everywhere. The classroom is everywhere. And Shauna mentioned getting rid of textbooks. I actually do that, but the idea of sending students out on the internet to get their own education is a little bit troublesome to me. So one of the things I've started doing is what I call a meta-pedagogy of technology. I have assignments where students have to not only do the assignment with a certain technology, but they have to include a component where they reflect on what the use of this technology says about our society and about the state of education right now. And so if I heard you right, I think what you're saying is you don't just teach the material, you teach the meta factor of the material, like how this is connected to our culture and the trending things of our culture, both for better and worse. So it's critical thinking that you have to bring in.
other questions?
Shauna, when I heard you mention that you got that placement score and that derailed your college career for 2 years, that was really disturbing to me. And I kind of wonder how many students that we have that maybe get a score on a piece of paper and that discourages them to the same extent. And so what my question is for you, is that something you think you had to work out on your own? Or is there something that the institution could have done either before you took the test or after you got the results that could have made a difference?
I think honestly for me it has a lot to do with my upbringing and the fact that I did graduate so high in my high school class. You walk around with some sort of ego, I guess. I did earn a full ride to Wisconsin State University, and for reasons of, I am married to him now, but he wasn't able to follow me, and so I decided to go to Weatherford College when I was 18, and that was a community college. Actually, it was a junior college at that time, and I had such a huge ego, and so when I needed that humbling experience because I probably wouldn't be the regional president. I might have been elected it, but I'm sure my regional coordinators would have stepped me down pretty quickly if my ego wasn't put in check. And so for myself, it was definitely me that had to deal with my own ego and that failure. But I'm sure there's many students that if the colleges could connect with them, unfortunately at my school, you kind of get your test results kind of just by an admin. She just kind of hands you your results, and so that connectivity to someone who could really reach out to them is immediately lost. And so I would think that definitely if there was a counselor or someone who could kind of soften the blow of that failure, and now that I'm I actually graduated last spring, I realized it wasn't a failure. I realized that it had been 15 years since I had touched a real math problem, and I needed a refresher. But in that moment of the failure, it was a hardcore failure. So for me, I had to work through it myself, but I think many students just need the help.
We have time for one more question. If we have one more. If not, I have one more. Oh, good. We got one more. No pressure.
Hello. So I just joined this group last month, and I just got my master's December 19th, and I'm now a new professor. So from students and professors up there, what is some advice that you could give just someone green, just in one, what could you tell me?
Have fun.
Be enthusiastic.
Come to class prepared.
Engage with your students.
I was gonna say, yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. No, always engage with the students before you do anything else. I think before they even start your class, just engage with your students.
Love the job. It's the best there is.
That was an awesome last question. I hate to ask mine after that. I think we may just close on that one because that's better than the question I was going to give. Let's thank our fabulous panelists. Welcome to our new people. Hopefully you gained some great insights. I know I have things that I want to take away as well. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, Richard, thanks so much. It's great to be here tonight. I really enjoyed this. Yeah, thank you. Oh. Oh, okay. Okay. Brief announcement. Okay. I'm afraid though you're losing the crowd here, but. He's gonna need this.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're not quite finished. We're not quite finished, I'm sorry. We don't. We have one final step to finish the evening, please. I want to say thank you to Tricia and to the student and teacher panelists. And Joe, I'm not crazy about cats either, or dogs for that matter. And something that Vicki said. Vicki Sapp said that her classroom is a happy, calm place. I don't know about calm necessarily, but I have found that if you really love teaching, no matter what else is going on in the world at large, or no matter what else is going on in departmental politics, when you enter the classroom for that hour and 20 minutes, everything is just as it's supposed to be. And everything else is simply pushed away for that time. On one final, more somber note, if you'll please turn to page 62 of your program, if you have that with you. Every year, we conclude this session by pausing to remember colleagues who have passed away since we last met. So please join me as we honor their memory and the contributions they have made to their students and to our profession with the moment of silence, please. Thank you for being with us tonight in this opening general session. Enjoy the rest of the conference. I hope to see some of you around. And I say we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Good night.